What's going on, STR Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Short Term Rental Secrets Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Sjogren, here as always with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emmanuel Pani. What's up, B?
What's going on, my brother? It's good to see you. We're talking off air, and we're like, should we change the intro to the show or not? And I think I like it.
It's
It's
on
been,
autopilot, man. I don't think I can start the
yeah,
show any differently at
and
this
then
point.
another way, yeah. And I wouldn't know like who you're talking about if you don't start with my brother from another mother. I'd be like, oh, he hasn't called me in yet, So nothing for me to do. But yeah, man, this show I'm super excited about because I've seen these two girls everywhere. And I remember meeting Sarah in Nashville for the first time in person. And she came up to say hi to you, and you and I were talking. And I looked at her, and it was like one of those moments I'm like, I know you from somewhere. I'm like, I've seen your face around. And you're like, yeah, everywhere. And then I'm like, I put two and two together. I'm like, yeah, shit, I've seen Sarah or Emily's face everywhere. And it was such a fun show. Love their energy, love their friendship, love their story, really. Like everything that they've been about. And it made me miss my friends too. Like, you know what I mean? Like I have friends like that. I have friends that I've been friends with since some like second, third grade. And just seeing them create this business together and get to like live 10 minutes away from each other and like all the good stuff. Yeah, made me miss some of my friends. Because again, like I'm a big proponent that we should do life surrounded by people that we love and that inspire us and protect us and want the best for us. And for me, there's no better way to do it than doing a business together. But at the same time, people always warn you about that, right?
Yeah, and we talk
Doing the
about that
business
on the
with
show.
friends.
We've got Sarah Gladwell and Emily Karnez on the show, the Karwells. If you guys follow them on IG, highly encourage you to. They're great. I love their content. They're just fun people. And we talked a lot about that, right? We heard about their journey, how they got started, how they've scaled it up, what they're focusing on now, which I'm excited about, but also diving into what it's like working with your best friend. And I had some questions for them about that because I have seen people partner up with friends or family purely out of fear, right? It's feels more comfortable to start a business with somebody that you know, and it's more of an accountability buddy than an actual business partner. So we drilled into what are your complementary skill sets and how do you make this work and how do you resolve challenges? And it was just a fun conversation overall. And if you are considering or you currently work with a friend or a family member, this one will give you a lot of value. And even if you don't, I mean, their energy is great. They're very fun and they're doing some cool things. And they're just people that I like to hang around with. So let's get into the show with Sarah Glidewell and Emily Karnez, the Carwells. What's going on, STR Nation? Today, I am very excited for this episode because I've been looking forward to having these ladies on for a long time. I've been watching their journey on IG, and they've been doing some really cool things. I just think that they're fun people, and I wanted to talk to them some more. So today on the show, we've got Sarah Glidewell and Emily Karnez with us, and welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you for
Seriously,
having
I'm really
us.
excited that you're here. I love your content online, seriously, and it's entertaining, but it's also like you're putting out like actionable nuggets. And I saw one of yours the other day on the whole like Airbnb bus thing and how people are complaining, and then just showing some of your examples and case studies and like here's what you can actually do to fix this instead of complain about it. So I love that. But why don't we start from the beginning as far as one, where are you guys based out of? And then two, how did you get into the whole short-term rental space?
Yes, amazing. All right. Well, I am Sarah, one half of the Karwells. I'm the talkative half of the two, so I'll always toss a question or two to Emily so I don't just talk over her the entire time. But we started in short-term rentals in 2019. At the time, my husband and I were traveling a lot on the weekends, and so we just decided, like, why not throw the apartment online and just see if we can start having our travels paid for by having somebody stay in our apartment. And it would book instantly, right? Like we were in the heart of Fort Worth, like very high tourism, a ton of people coming in, coming out. And so right away, him and I were like, wait a minute, what if we tried to scale this? Like, what if we kind of grew this into something larger? And him and I had been having conversations constantly about how we wanted our relationship to work in a way where he made the money and I made the money grow. And we didn't know what that meant at that point in time. And so we had just been saving every single penny that we could for an opportunity like this that made sense for us to pour some money into. And so at the end of 2019, we decided to scale that a little bit, and go from having just our apartment to renting out 3 additional one bed, one bath units in Dallas. And Emily at the time was like, "Awesome. Let me help you furnish them. Let me help you design them." Like kind of up her alley as well because we're both pretty creative. And at the time, we were just in this incubator phase of just spending every single second of our time putting these B&Bs together. And unfortunately, how the story goes is that we launched these 3 B&Bs in Dallas on March 8th of 2020. And so, as we all know now, the world came collapsing down that exact week. And so I had just poured my entire life savings into these 3 B&Bs, and because we were in the heart of Dallas, we knew that traffic was gonna come to a screeching halt, and we knew that we weren't gonna get, any sort of traffic at that point in time. And so I was sitting in a camp of like, "Holy crap, all of my money is gone. How am I supposed to afford these now 5 rents that I had due inclusive of the house that I was living in?" And Emily was in the boat as well of just graduating with her master's and not being able to get a job. Nobody was hiring, nobody was traveling. So both Emily and I were like, oh, reality set in really, really fast. And so at that point in time, what we decided to do instead of just sitting there and feeling bad for ourselves is we were crazy enough to start a second business offering design services to investors who were really ready to take advantage of landlords who were now beginning to get desperate for tenants. And so we started Carwell Design at that point in time. And Emily and I went all in on designing for other investors, and used that money to kind of supplement the units that weren't making any money because there was no travelers. But that's kind of how we got into this space. It was a rough go, but nonetheless, we're still here to tell the tale.
Wow. So you had 4 arbitrage deals plus your place?
Yes.
Okay. So you had 4 arbitrage deals plus your place. How long did you have to basically shut them down for? I don't know how it was with Dallas. Like, when did they actually open it up?
Yeah. I mean, we had the advantage of it being Texas, right? And so Texas was a place that was a little less crazy about COVID as maybe some other states. But we were able to get some travel nurses in there. We were able to get some displaced families in there. And so we just basically turned it into a long term rental, which was good, right? Like we weren't anticipating getting anyone in there for the foreseeable future. And so it ended up stabilizing a little bit. And so we went probably from March of 2020 all the way through, I would say, September of 2020 of just having long-term tenants in there. And in that era as well, we had another awful horror story happen of, I got a phone call on July 4th in one of the properties that we were flipping from one tenant to another. And the cleaners got to the property on July 4th, opened the door, and everything in my property had been stolen. Like, every single piece of furniture, every single supply, cleaning supply, plate, decor item, everything had been gone, taken out of the apartment complex, and at the time, I was so novice, both Emily and I were so novice at investing in Airbnbs that we didn't have the right insurance, we didn't have cameras on these units, we didn't have any sort of proof, and it was through Booking.com, and they didn't have, proof of who it was either, or did they have insurance to kinda cover us. So,
But
twen
that's what you get for designing the place so well, you know what I mean? The place was so cute and well designed. The people were like, "You know what? I'm gonna leave with all of this shit so that my house looks exactly like this afterwards." Which is a lot. And like, yeah, Booking.com is one of those people, they're like, "Well, you should have checked." And you're like, "No, you should have checked." They're like, "Well, we both should have checked." And now neither one of us has, you know? And I love how the beginning of your guys' story, it's so rocky because you're still here. You both smile quite a bit. And so, like, what does your day-to-day look like now? What do you guys do? Like, what is your day-to-day like now? You still have those units in Dallas? You got rid of them? What's the story?
Yeah. Emily, do you wanna talk through that as well?
Yeah. I mean, our day-to-day now is definitely a lot different, mostly because we've transitioned away from arbitrage almost completely, pretty much because it's so volatile. Like, it's a really great starting point, we think, for people who are trying to get into short-term rentals, especially if you don't have a lot of capital. But it's just there's another hand in the pot. We don't really like having that landlord in there. And so we're on to like investing in homes pretty much now. And so we're still kind of operating those. We have a property manager who runs most of it for us, but we're able to kind of hand off a lot of the day to day to him. And then we're working with our teams on the back end. And then we focus mostly on Karwells, the brand, as our day to day at this point in time. So we have a mentorship program that we do. We do social media posts. If we have brand deals, anything like that, we get to spend most of our time doing like the fun, creative stuff because we've figured out a way to make our houses run on the back end.
That's amazing. And so we're talking about off air. You guys are going into your busy season and you're both hustling right now. So what does the hustle of actually getting the properties ready so that you can earn your summer, right? That's something that you said at the beginning of the show. Is like, well, now we're gonna hustle for the month of May and then we're gonna earn our summer. What does that look like?
Yeah, I tell you what, this first 5 months of this year, these houses that we've had that are typically pretty, self-sufficient have been throwing hands. They have been needy as heck this entire first half of the year, and May is always super busy, but when it comes to Michigan and investing in Michigan properties, because now that's where we spend all of our time, both Emily and I were born and raised in Michigan, and we moved back about 3 years ago. And so all of our purchased properties are primarily waterfront homes in Michigan, and we have 4 seasons. So those seasons come with some difficulties as well. And so when we get ready for our summer guests, May tends to be our busiest month of the year because our summer guests are our highest paying guests. And it's when all of the amenities are getting used the most, like the pontoon boats and the docks and the kayaks and the fire pits and the grills and, everything that gets used outside in the summer. And so it's just we try and prioritize our highest paying guests. And so we do all of our fixes, all of our improvements, all of our renovations, and really try and prime all of those amenities for those guests that are coming from Chicago and Detroit who are paying a pretty penny to be here.
Got it. So you're just running through making sure that everything is done up the way that they need it, and then any improvements that you've done or that you needed to do gets done for them, and then they get to get the new toys, let's say, right? And then just use them throughout the summer, and then you guys deal with it because then half of those, from what I know about U.S. geography in Michigan, you're not using kayaks in the middle of the winter, and so you're just kind of like relaxing. So you're both from Michigan, and you've been friends for a second. So talk to us about working with what I would go on a whim and say like your super close best friend type of vibe. So how is working with your best friend? Do you guys go outside and throw hands sometimes, or are you mostly amicable in terms of like how you resolve issues?
Yeah, I think that we're pretty amicable. I will say that. I know that like not all best friends resolve issues in the same way that we do, but I think one of the benefits between the two of us is we're so completely opposite that we run in our own lanes very well. And so I'm more organized, I'm more behind the scenes. I like doing those behind the scenes things while Sarah likes being the person who's more social and on the like the face of our brand. And so we don't butt heads that often because we kind of are easily in our own lanes.
Yeah. And what I'll say too is I think a lot of people, we have been asked so many times about, the anxiety of running a business with your best friend, but Emily and I have been partners in every phase of life, like we were teammates in high school on sports teams, and then we were roommates in college, and then we moved across the country together. We have worked together in other capacities at other jobs before this. And so honestly, when we started thinking about building this business, it was no question that we were going to run it together. And it wasn't this huge transition for us to start working together because it's just, a new environment that we're working together in. But we know each other so well at this point that, it's almost to our advantage that a lot of things get to go unspoken because we know each other so well.
So I'm curious. So what are the roles and responsibilities, right? Like how do you guys ding and dong inside the business? Because I've had, we coach a lot of people, and a lot of times what I find is people, they want to partner with somebody and they really just want an accountability buddy because it's scary to do something new. So I always ask, okay, so what is your unique skill set and what do you enjoy doing versus what are you bringing to the table and what's your unique skill set and how do those complement each other? because what I find is if there's not really clear roles and responsibilities, there tends to be overlap or like, all right, well, who's making this decision, right? And it just gets messy. So I'm curious, how have you guys navigated that, and what do the roles and responsibilities look like for you?
Yeah, I will say I think we are still navigating that. We're almost 5 years in, and there are still things that come up that we still have to talk to each other like, "Okay, this maybe falls better into your role, but I've been trying to take it on and I just shouldn't anymore." And so I think that that's an ever-changing part of our business. We have to remind ourselves, even though we're 5 years in, that's a relatively new business, and so we're still kind of learning in that process. But we very much identify with the roles of the visionary and the integrator, which is terms that we hear all the time in our industry. But Sarah is very much so a visionary. So any like new ideas that are brought to the table, a lot of relationship building falls under Sarah's category. And then once we have an idea and we actually have to systemize it and get it running, that's kind of when it falls over to me.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I will second that as well. I always tell everyone, like, literally nothing would get done on the back end of our business if it was up to me. Like, I can get the ball rolling, I can make the leap, I can take the risk, I can make the connection. But when it comes to really delivering on the back end to make sure that either our mentees or our guests or whoever is experiencing the end result of what we're trying to offer, it would be crap if I didn't have an Emily. And so it's really nice to not have to wear hats that don't fit us, and to have kind of that polar opposite that picks up where we want to drop off.
That was the vibe that I was getting, but I wanted to hear it because I see that a lot. And a lot of people are like, well, why don't you and E like do stuff together? I'm like, well, we're both visionaries and nothing would get done if we did that, right? It would feel cool and it would be fun, but like we'd still need an integrator at the end of the day, right? So cool. Thank you for that. I'm curious, for you, what's your vision now? Like, what are you excited about, and what are the goals with the business, moving forward?
Uh, that is the ultimate question, isn't it? Emily and I both talk ourselves in circles about what direction we want to take Carwells. I think the advantage that we have is we have time on our side, right? We're young, we're only 5 years into this business, and the list keeps getting longer of things that we want to try out, that we want to experiment with, that we want to try and run with or build. And so our biggest difficulty constantly is like, where do we put our attention right now? Right. And how do we, go all in on this one thing right now where it makes sense today and we can put other things on pause for later on down the road. Right now, specifically, Emily and I, all of last year, spent that year launching our mentorship, because we both really enjoy the community side of this business. Like we always say, the happiest people are self-employed people who really are in their purpose. And so our goal is just to bring as many people who are meant to be in this industry over to this industry as quickly as possible. Because both her and I, grew up in families and in a community that didn't have real estate investors, and we weren't surrounded by super wealthy people. And so we just feel super fortunate to have exposure to the people and the information that we do have exposure to already, and we want to extend that to other people. And so we've become super, super passionate about that community side of our business through our mentorship. And so we're starting to explore retreats and things like that, just to kind of further those connections with other people. But then outside of that, in real estate specifically, I think we're reaching a point, just like you guys have reached, where we feel like we get hospitality, we feel like we understand real estate investing, and we've only done residential up until this point. And so now we're starting to dabble in what does it look like to take the next leap into commercial, and just starting to navigate those waters, just like everybody does, right? So
You're like literally giving Mike what Mike wanted because Mike was hoping that this
I was
conversation
waiting
was
to hear
lead
that was in the goal
was
section somewhere. I'm like,
was
yes.
leading to the Carwells hotel collection and boutique hotel collection because it has your name written all over it. Yeah. So what does that look like for you guys? Are you thinking Michigan? Are you thinking
Um, nothing in particular yet. We've started having some conversations with developers looking at the ground up route, mostly because Michigan just you look at things that are working in other states, and Michigan has a ton of tourism, especially in the summer, of course. And we just think it's such a hidden gem. And so we see things that are working in like Minnesota and Hocking Hills, and we know that it could work here in Michigan as well. And there's just not a ton of operators in Michigan that have a knack for design or have design very high on their value ladder, and that is very high for us, and we think that that kind of is our secret sauce of why our B&Bs produce so much more than our closest competitors. But we're not married to Michigan either, and we're not married to, doing ground up construction either. So I think right now it's just, we're in the process of putting our feelers out. We've kind of put a pause on thinking about growing our residential real estate outside of maybe partnering with people and raising capital like we have been in the background. But really, our primary focus is to try and see what opportunity when it comes to commercial real estate makes the most sense for us to kind of hook on to.
We had 2 boardroom members that have done hotel deals in Michigan, so it's possible. I'll send you a link after. We were just checking in on one of them, like
And
ground
one
up
of them,
development.
is absolutely stunning.
Ah,
It's
Like
pretty sweet.
you would approve in terms of like your design. I would be like, okay, this is a new Michigan that is happening right now. So that's super exciting, and I can't wait to see it because again, if you guys are doing it and you will with your own flair to it, it's definitely gonna be something super super fun, super interesting. So this is a question that I ask a lot lately, and I never do it with 2 people on the show, but it's how do you guys cultivate? Because you do a lot of stuff, right? So how do you find a bit of balance for yourself? And also in terms of like your partnership, like you guys have moments where you guys just go off the grid and you're like, okay, let's plan out the next 6 months. So what does balance look like for you guys? So just go for many petties and just chill out for a second. What is that like for you guys?
Yeah, I think this year balance is something that we're trying to prioritize mostly because I'm a new mom. And so we haven't had balance for the past 4 years. We've just been going nonstop and saying yes to every opportunity that comes our way, which I think has been extremely beneficial for us so far. But we're learning that we have to start saying no to some things. And so we're trying to learn balance and prioritize wellness and figure out what our schedules need to look like. So I know Sarah like doesn't start her day until noon because she's prioritizing her marriage and they spend the mornings together. Things like that we're trying to implement into our days because we have to. Like I don't have a choice anymore. I have to figure out how to balance my life because I have this other person who needs me all the time. And so it was a big shock and I wasn't ready for that, but I needed something to force me into having to balance out my life a little more.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
And I'll echo that as well. I mean, like Emily said, we have just been running a million miles an hour for the last 4 years. And we've been okay not having balance, right? Not having like your stereotypical, like we're only going to work so much and we're going to make sure we prioritize these other corners of our life. But it was because Emily and I both wanted this to turn into something so badly. And so I think that, so many entrepreneurs are familiar with that era of just trying to get something up off the ground, and it doesn't necessarily leave room for balance. But now that we've got, kind of our iron in several different fires here and several different things are working for us, we're allowing ourselves to take the foot off the gas a little bit. Our cash flow problem that we had at the beginning of needing to replace 9 to 5 income is now stabilized. It's gone. Food is on the table. We're able to live normal lives at this point. So everything on top is gravy. And so both Emily and I are trying to develop a little bit more balance in our lives, whether that be, like she said, I've tried to reschedule my days to where if I start working at 8 a.m. in the morning, like I will just work until 9 p.m. at night. And so I have to force myself to do all of the other things in the morning before I start working. So I've started working out in the morning. Ethan and I have started having breakfast dates instead of trying to fit them in at the end of the day. And it's just been really nice to start prioritizing life outside of work before work and then let work be second because I will do the work. It's the fun stuff that I'll always say no to. So we're still learning though. We're 5 years into it. We're still excited about it, but we know that the pace that we've been running for the last 4 or 5 years isn't sustainable forever. So how do we balance that back out?
I love that. I spoke at a meetup last night in Boston, and I asked everybody, what's your goal, right? And I went around the room, asked a bunch of people, and most people said some version of financial freedom. And I was like, cool. So when you are financially free and you don't have a job anymore and you've got all this stuff dialed in, what are you gonna do with your time? right? And I've been harping on this for a while, and I started calling it like your perfect week. So like when we're 95 years old, looking back from the rocking chair, like looking back on our life, yes, we'll have all these cool trips and memories and things like that. But at the end of the day, the bulk of our life is an accumulation of our average weeks. So I am hyper intentional with how I structure my weeks to maximize every week in between doing all that cool stuff. And I feel like if we paid more attention to that, we'd be a lot more fulfilled because it's very easy, especially once you start to get some success and you get the ball rolling, you can get sucked into that instead of being taking that pause of like, why did I start this to begin with? And you can still grow and do all these amazing things and you learn more leadership and get more people on team and everything else. But I am very intentional with how I structure the weeks. And even if you have a job, like there are still pockets of time that you can use to prioritize certain things. So it's never a time issue, it's a prioritization issue. And it's being disciplined to not waver from those things unless it's absolutely necessary. It's easy to be like, oh, we can't do the breakfast thing today. I've got to catch up on blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, we are having freaking breakfast today. And then I'll deal with this and I will figure out how to get it done. So
Mhm.
I love that. I'm excited for you guys.
Yeah. On that note, I think the concept of discipline, at least for me, right? Every time you hear the word discipline, it's associated with something bad or something hard. And what I realized, it's just as important to be disciplined about doing things that make you happy. Because then happy people are happy people. And I think so many people, especially entrepreneurs, especially once you're like running those early ages, like right, those 0 to 5 years into the business, you get rid of all the stuff that makes you happy. And then you have all this outside fulfillment that's supposed to make you happy, but you're not happy. And then you start getting depressed. That's why so many entrepreneurs are depressed, in my mind at least. It's because you're not doing shit that makes you happy. You keep doing shit for other people that makes them happy. And you're looking for this outside validation of what you did to make you happy, but you're not doing the things that make you happy. And so you're like continuously feeding yourself things that don't make you happy, being like, why am I not happy? It's just because you're not doing the shit that makes you happy. And so really like prioritizing that. So if like breakfast with your husband or with your wife makes you happy, do that and then see how different your energy is throughout the day. That's why like my mornings, like I won't do anything in the mornings. Like if you call me in the morning and like one of my one of my neighbors calls me and he sees me leaving the house and he's like, I see you on your phone leaving the house. I'm like, Yeah, but it's not you time yet. So you can see me, you can call me, and I don't pick up the phone and I see it. Like all you should have in my hand that I don't pick up is like, why are you not picking up the phone? I'm like, because it's not you time. It's me time. Just the fact that I have a phone that I carry in my pocket, that doesn't mean you can reach me anytime you want to call me.
I could not agree more. I had someone a while ago suggest to me that instead of saying like you want to be a disciplined person, say that you want to be a devoted person. And devoted sounds a lot less strict, scary, negative, than, discipline does, and so that's been a big shift, but I completely agree with you. I think that, we got into this business and we wanted to be self-employed and we wanted to be real estate investors to be able to live our lives, right? To live for a living. And so now in kind of having that shift of prioritizing work after we prioritize ourselves in the morning and not starting work until noon, it has increased my happiness level over the last few months exponentially. And also just the response that we've gotten from other people. Like Ethan and I will be in the gym at 10:30 and we'll have so many people that will ask us like, "What do you guys do?" to where both of you can be in the gym at 10:30 in the morning every single weekday. And so having other people remind us of, the uniqueness of that ability to have that type of a schedule has also like increased my appreciation for what we've built over the last 5 years of just kind of lifting my head and being like, "Holy cow, we have come a long way from being stuck at that 9 to 5." So I completely agree. It's those little things throughout the day that make a big difference.
Yeah, and it reminds you how blessed you are. So I love
Hang on,
that.
Emily was gonna say something. I wanna give her a
Go,
second.
Emily.
It's
It's
you're
okay.
ready.
I was just going to mention because you asked us earlier about being best friends and business partners. And I think that this is something that we've started to prioritize is prioritizing our friendship over our business a little bit lately. So we live 15 minutes from each other and we've lived close to each other for a lot of our business, but we pretty much only talk about business things. And so now we're prioritizing if we're going on a walk, we're just talking about friend stuff for a little while because we don't want to be living in our business all the time. And I feel like learning how to balance that a little bit has been better for our friendship as well, which in turn is better for our business because we like each other better most of the time.
I struggle with that because I just love business. So I'm just like, what do we want to talk about? You know, a lot of the guys that I golf with, they're always talking about different sports and whatever, and I'm just like, okay, I can do that for about 3 minutes. But
3 whole
yeah,
minutes?
so that's something that
I don't even
working
believe
on.
that. I
Yeah.
think you're probably like a minute and a half and you start tuning off, but you're just like, okay, well,
Well, yeah. So what deals you
let's
got in the pipeline? Let's talk about some deals.
so let's go. What's your freedom number? No, but the last question that I had for you guys, just to make it actionable for our listeners, is you guys have built quite a bit of a follower on social and everything else. So if we have somebody that is now listening to the show, maybe they have a similar dynamic to you guys or something like that. What are some things that you have learned over the years that have helped you grow it? And there were some of the tips that you would give people being like, oh, I'm anxious, I'm this, I'm that. Give them the sauce. But it's
Oh,
your version of the sauce.
yes. We have so much to say about social media, and honestly, I think you could argue that Emily and I might be more passionate about social media than real estate. We do love real estate, but we love social media. For us, I think we've always really tried to maintain as much transparency as we possibly can offer online. Social media, of course, is a highlight reel, right? And especially in the entrepreneurial and business space, people want to brag about their wins, right? Like us included, like everybody, that's a natural response to do when you're experiencing, that in your business. But that's not the reality of our day to day, right? The reality of our day to day, we do have wins, but we also have big L's every single day that we're dealing with. And so, our most common comment that we get from mentees or people who come to our social media or through our social media to us is that we are able to build a lot of trust with people before ever actually interacting with them in person or over the phone or like, one on one in any capacity. And so that's just been really cool to see the response of people appreciating that transparency because it gives them the sense that they are, dealing with someone who is a true entrepreneur, who's actually doing the thing, who's experiencing the highs and the lows, who can kind of come alongside them and help them along the way. And that's brought a lot of fulfillment for us, right? Like we love that the real estate has provided the income and the lifestyle that it's provided for us, or is really beginning to provide for us at this point. But from a purpose perspective, we just feel so much more fulfilled when we're helping other people achieve that for themselves. Like neither Emily or I thought we would be in the position to be helping people who are our parents' age live the lives that we're living now at their age, right? And so it's cool to just watch that domino effect of just sharing our story online and how it impacts other people, and how it completely changes the trajectory of their life. Like we never saw that coming. We just liked posting, on social media our silly little reels, and it's just turned into something so much more.
That's
Love
super
that.
powerful.
Well, before I get into my last question, first I want to thank you both for coming on. But where can the listeners stay up to date with everything you guys have going on? Give us your socials, any links that you want to throw in there that they can follow you guys.
Yeah, we are just at the Karwells on all social media platforms. Most active probably on Instagram. So if you want to reach out in the Instagram DMs, it's probably where you get the quickest response. And then our website is thecarwells.space. We try to keep that as up to date as possible.
Cool. So the last question that we ask all of our guests, and I want an individual answer from both of you. I'm going to have Emily go first. What is your number one secret to success with short-term rentals?
Oh, okay. I mean, I feel like this is a kind of a basic answer, but I think it fell off for a lot of people for a little bit of time. It's just always thinking every decision you make for your short-term rental should have the guest in mind. And I don't think that that was a thing for everybody for a little while, because it was such a cash grab, like you could throw up whatever you wanted and you could make as much money as you wanted. And every decision that we're making when we're designing the properties, when we're picking out supplies, we're thinking back to the guest that's going to be staying at the property. And we genuinely care about the reviews that are going to be coming in based on them telling us that they used something or that they appreciated something. And so I think that it's a very simple thing if you are in hospitality to think about prioritizing the guest, but I don't think that everybody's doing it.
I agree. And I think that is great advice. All right, Sarah, what do you got?
Oh, it's hard to narrow it down to just one. But I would say my biggest piece of advice is to fail fast and fail forward. I've been told that so many times over the last 5 years, and I think that, all of us were raised in the same education system here in the US, and it doesn't really encourage a whole lot of failure, and so Emily and I will catch ourselves getting anxious anytime we're stepping into something new, like commercial real estate, right? Or like the mentorship or whatever we're doing that we have never done before. It seems like every day that's our job is to try something new. And so just losing that fear of failure over time has been a huge shift for us where we're just like action is the most important thing, right? It's not about us getting it right out the gate. It's not about us getting it right even 2 or 3 times in, but it is about us failing constantly and through those we learn. And so if people are stepping into the entrepreneurial ring or the real estate investing ring, and are trying to avoid failure, don't. Right? Like, you've just got to embrace that that's part of it, and start moving through those. So, you're never gonna learn without trying, and so if you can just get comfortable with that failure, you're well on your way.
Cool.
Hmm,
All right. Well,
great advice.
ladies, thank you so much for coming on here. Again, I enjoy following your journey on the IG. And for listeners out there, make sure you go follow at the Karwells. They have some great content, some fun stuff, and they're just good people. So go follow them. Appreciate you guys for coming on. All of you listeners, hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.